Hello, everyone. This is podcast number 4 from Center Cross Ministries. I'm Brian. I thank you for tuning in. This week, we're going to talk about a question that's pretty argumentative. This question did not come in through an email. It's something that I just wanted to talk about. Basically, my wife and I have been discussing going full-time with our ministry. That's something that God has put on our hearts and that we feel like we are led to do. We want to be full-time missionaries, and Center Cross Ministries has came a long way in the last couple of years. So we got to thinking of ways, to get out there and do more. And what we decided to do was get on the North American Missions Board, get on their website, and see what they had to offer, as far as missions. So we thought, well, maybe we can get involved with the North American Missions Board and do more stuff. Maybe they need help in New York. We want to give it all. We're all in. We're all in at this point. And so we got on the website just to see what they had and what they're about, and they had a lot of stuff. So we kept on looking, and then we came to an application type deal, I guess. It's just you answer some questions and then send it in, and someone calls you back or emails you, one or the other. And while filling out the application, I came across something that was it was bothersome to me. It bothered me a lot. And I'll go ahead and read you the question that I came across. And I know this subject is very touchy for some people, but I feel like it needs to be addressed, and I at least want to address it and send it out and see what you guys have to say about it. Those of you that are interested, that are watching, if you want to respond to this, I would love for you to respond to this. Send me an email and give me your opinion on this, because that's what it is. It's just simply an opinion, and let me tell you why. Let me go ahead and read you the question. Let's start from there. Okay, basically one of the questions we came across was, do you or your spouse speak in an unknown tongue or have a private prayer language? Basically asking, do we speak in tongues or pray in tongues? Okay, so our answer to that was no. I don't speak in tongues. I don't have that spiritual gift, and neither does my wife. She don't speak in tongues. But what bothered me, I guess, wasn't really the question. It was what it said underneath the question. It said guideline, and I'm reading this directly off the website. Guideline: no person who is actively participating in or promoting tongues shall be appointed, approved, or endorsed by the North American Missions Board. This includes having a private prayer language. Okay. Then it goes on to say that if you are a mission of the North American Missions Board, if you are a missionary through the North American Missions Board, already, and you are participating in tongues, then basically you're to seek counsel, get counseled, and if you continue to do so, it results in termination. This bothers me. It's saying no person who is actively participating in this will be appointed. So they automatically just kick you out. If you say yes to that question, do you or your spouse speak in tongues? And my question is why? Why? And here's what I don't get. Why in the world? It would be okay if they ask the question, what is your spiritual gifts? And then they give you a box to fill out what your spiritual gifts are and why you feel like you have those spiritual gifts and what you've done in the past and all that, which they do ask some background stuff later on. But this question right here, it just bothers me, why they would do this, okay? Because basically they're kicking you out if you have a spiritual gift from God. And here's why. It's because they think that speaking in tongues has ceased. And I know that speaking in tongues is something that, I don't know how to say this. I guess you could say that the spiritual gift of speaking in tongues it has a wide band of controversy because there are a lot of people who abuse the gift. I've seen the gift abused before. But the thing is, whenever someone's up there really just showing off, and whenever you hear someone speak in tongues if it's really biblical. Because the Bible tells us, Paul addresses speaking in tongues in Corinthians. He addresses it, and he tells us what biblical tongues is. And I've witnessed biblical tongues from people who are very godly men who go into the inner cities of St. Louis and Kansas City, far worse places than here, and they will witness to anyone, someone with a gun hanging out of their pants. They don't care. They will go up and witness to them, and they have the gift of speaking in tongues. So if they go to the North American Missions Board and say, I want to give it all, I want to go wherever you send me, I'll go, but they speak in tongues and they reject them, that's just sad. That's just sad. Because the truth is, no one can say speaking in tongues has ceased. Let's get into 1 Corinthians 13. Okay? 1 Corinthians 13, it says, Paul's writing to the church of Corinth. He says, love never fails, but there are prophecies, they will cease. There are tongues, they will be stilled. There is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. Oh, yeah, okay. Here's the part that I want to really stress. Verse 10. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. This is where people get caught up. Okay, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. And then he goes on to say, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. We know the greatest is love. We know that. Okay? That's not the argument here. So, Paul is saying that prophecy, tongues, knowledge, they're going to go away when perfection comes. Well, guess what? What is perfection? That's the question here. We don't know. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows because I have talked to so many pastors with master's level educations, doctoral degrees. I have talked to street evangelists. I've talked to everybody about this. And the truth is, no one knows. See, everyone's got an opinion about this. Some people say perfection is when Christ comes back. Well, if that's the case, then tongues is very active because he hasn't came back. It can't mean his first coming because we know that tongues existed after Christ ascended and promised his Spirit on the day of Pentecost. So it would have to mean his second coming. Some people think that. Some people say it means the completion of the Bible. Some people also say it means glorification. And they say that because it says, but when the perfect comes and the imperfect disappears, they say that, they think, talking about your glorified body comes and your imperfect body is gone, because it goes on to say, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, but when I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. And then it says, now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. So they're putting out what's seeing face to face with Christ, glorification, getting your glorified body, and going to be with the Lord. And it says, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And we know that Christ fully knows us, and we will know fully. And it says, it goes on to say, faith, love, and hope remain, and the greatest is love. But so some people think that means glorification. If it means glorification, then tongues would exist until you die and go to being, go up in glory. For each individual person, the gift of tongues would cease. So if I did speak in tongues, then if this indeed was talking about glorification, then it would end whenever I died for me and went to be with the Lord, but not for everyone else. See, but that's opinion right there. That's opinion. That's not. That's just. That's an opinion that I've also heard. I've heard a lot of opinions on this. I'm kind of leaning towards the glorification part, but again, that's my opinion. And all the others that when the Bible's completed, when Christ comes back, those are opinions, assumptions. Okay? A matter of fact, Paul talks about tongues all through 1 Corinthians, really. And he goes on in 1 Corinthians 14, follow the way of love and eagerly desire spiritual gifts, especially the gift of prophecy. For anyone who speaks in a tongue does not speak to men but to God. Indeed, no one understands him. He utters mysteries with his spirit. But everyone who prophesies speaks to men for their strengthening, encouragement, and comfort. He who speaks in a tongue edifies himself, but he who prophesies edifies the church. I would like every one of you to speak in tongues, but I would rather you have prophecy. He who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues unless he interprets, so that the church may be edified. So he's saying that tongues is one of the least important spiritual gifts, basically, but it's still an active spiritual gift, as long as it's used correctly for the church to be edified. A matter of fact, if you go on, I'm going to read out of my Bible. I got some verses pulled up here, and I got my Bible right here, so I'm going to look down for a minute. In 1 Corinthians 14, when you go down to verse 26, it's talking about orderly worship. But listen to this. What then shall we say, brothers? When you come together, everyone has a hymn or a word of instruction, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. All these must be done for the strengthening of the church. If anyone speaks in a tongue, 2 or at the most 3 should speak at one time, and someone must interpret. If there is no interpreter, the speaker should keep quiet in the church and speak to himself and God. Okay? He's talking about orderly worship. If you're going to speak in tongues, do it in an orderly manner. That's what he's saying right here. There should be an interpreter so that the church is edified. If there's not, you need to remain quiet and speak to God. Okay, that's what he's talking about right here. The point is, there is absolutely no scripture that says the gift of tongues in 2011 has ceased, gone, done, away with. There's nothing at all. So this bothers me a lot, as you could tell, when I get on here, and it's basically saying, hey, guess what? You get no support from us if you have a spiritual gift that God's given you. Sorry. What do you do? God gave me the gift of tongues. Well, you want me to get rid of it? How do you do that? So this is it bothers me a lot. And that's why I'm speaking about it, because I feel that this question should not be on this application or written like this. It should be explain your spiritual gifts, not basically if you speak in a tongue, you're out, because you see, obviously someone is very uncomfortable with that spiritual gift because they either think that it has ceased, or they've seen a lot of people abuse the gift, and they're scared that someone's going to come along and speak in tongues to edify themselves and to be a show-off or whatever. Well, that's between that person and God. That's not for someone to say, you cannot get support from us because you participate in a spiritual gift that's abused a lot. No. Unbiblical stuff going on here. If you ask me, it's unbiblical, because there's no biblical truth backing up any reason to reject someone because they have the gift of speaking in tongues. They don't reject people for having the gift of evangelism or teaching or administration or any of that. So I don't get it. So that's about all I got. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless you, and feel free to leave comments. Thank you.